Personally, the first pattern making class I attended scared me. I wanted to be this creative individual who creates beautifully illustrated designs flowing around my fashion figure, rendered to perfection. Not sit and calculate waist measurements and cut pieces of paper. Little did I know that that same pattern making class made me a designer. A sketch will remain a sketch without pattern making. It does require some patience and hard work, but with hard work and dedication, you can learn this skill needed to take your sketch to the next level. For fun, let's compare fashion design to a movie. If the design was the screenwriter's job and the material and color and trims are the actors, then the film director is the pattern maker. Without the director, the movie will never make it to the big screens, right? Well, it's the same with fashion design. Without the pattern maker, the actual design will never see the light of day. A warm welcome to all of you and well done for getting to Module 4. Talking about Module 4, you guys should already know the structure of the course. After completing Module 4, and if you pass all of your final module assignments, you will receive your professional diploma in fashion design. Module 4 is the proficient module, which means the lessons are a bit more challenging, but the information is key if you want to become a successful fashion designer. If you have any questions regarding the course or the content discussed during the lessons, please ask Morpheus to help you. I will be asking your input quite a lot throughout this lesson, so join in the fun and share your opinion in the Morpheus chat box. Right, let's start our lesson by looking at our lesson quote. This is one of my favorite quotes, and it says, "Sucking at something is the first step to being sort of good at something." Today we are going to look at various pattern making techniques and discuss the role of each one. We are also going to look at how to manipulate darts, add style lines and fullness to a pattern. Right, are you guys ready to start this lesson titled Modification Station? Today is all about exploring different pattern making techniques we can use to manipulate our basic blocks and turn them into what we want. We are going to look at the different techniques and then move to our various basic blocks and look at how we can incorporate these techniques to create something special. When planning a trip, you kind of have an idea of where you are going, what to pack, and a map ready to study when you get a little lost. That map will guide you throughout your journey. The design, whether it is a rough sketch or a technical drawing, will act as your map for this pattern journey you are going on. Before we look at the process you need to follow to get to the final destination successfully, let's define some terms you will hear today. Plot, or plotting, or to plot. A pattern plot refers to a line you have drawn on your working pattern that relates to a design detail or a feature such as a style line or a dart. These lines are then used during the pattern manipulation phase. And this brings me to pattern manipulation, which is when the original shape of the pattern is cut and spread or altered to represent the new design. Pivotal point. This term refers to a designated point that a pattern is cut to and from to avoid changing the shape and the size of the pattern too much. The bust point is often used as the pivotal point. And then blending. Blending is a process of shaping and smoothing lines to create a smooth transition from one seam into the next. And now we can look at the process. First, you need to study your sketch and identify all of the design elements. Then you also need to identify the 3 pattern making techniques you need to apply to create your design. These are dart manipulation, adding fullness and contouring, but we will look at these a little bit later. And then lastly, you need to trace your working pattern from the master block to manipulate it. So 1, study the design, 2, identify the techniques, and 3, trace the pattern and start drafting. I mentioned the 3 pattern making techniques earlier. Now these techniques are used to turn that 2-dimensional sketch into a 3-dimensional garment. So in other words, changing the shape to fit the body. I mentioned the 3 techniques earlier. I wonder if you can list them with me. It is dart manipulation, adding fullness, and contouring. Let's start with the dart. Do you remember what a dart is? What is a dart? Is it a style line? Or is it a manipulation technique to create shape? Or is it excess fabric to create gathers? Please pop your answer in the Morpheus chat box and let's see if you were correct. A dart is a wedged shape cut out that influences and also controls the fit of the garment. In other words, it gives shape to a garment. Dart manipulation thus refers to the relocation of a dart on your pattern. Remember, the dart is responsible for the fit, so considering it is a must and will be incorporated into the design in some way. This can be on a bodice, skirt, sleeve, trouser, dress, or outerwear block. For those who don't know, a dart is made up of 2 dart legs that converge at a predetermined point indicated by the notch symbol on the pattern. The amount in between the 2 dart legs is called the dart intake. The excess or extra fabric of the dart intake controls the fit by adding gradual ease when necessary or taking extra fabric away when necessary to create the perfect fit. Now, before we can manipulate darts, we first need to create some darts to play with. Once you have drawn up your basic bodice block, you need to shape the block. This process involves creating darts. How do you do this? Well, I have created a short bonus lesson explaining pattern shaping, so please pop over to your bonus content tab on your course page and go check it out. When it comes to flat pattern making techniques, there are 2 dart manipulation methods, and they are cutting and spreading and pivoting. Let's look at the cut and spread method first. To add or to relocate a dart, you cut the pattern and spread it to add excess fabric, or cut open and overlap it if you want to create a closer fit or move the dart. Always, always, always trace the block first before manipulating the pattern by cutting and spreading it, and save the original working pattern as a base for you to refer to if necessary. To show you how to cut and spread, I have made these miniature patterns, and we are either going to use this one with the shoulder dart, or we are going to use the shaped bodice pattern with the extra waist dart. Right, so there we go. You can do the examples with both of these patterns. I'm going to start by using the 1 shoulder dart. So first I am getting a piece of paper and I am drawing my design. I always like making a little sketch on my piece of paper, as you can see. So first step is to trace around your bodice block. And then also remember to mark your dart leg position and use a pin to mark your bust point. I always just pop it in and move the pattern a little bit to make sure that it went through. Once you take it out, just mark your bust point on the pattern and reconnect the lines, creating your dart. So that will be your shoulder dart. Now this is a shoulder dart and we want a bust underarm dart. So we will mark in the position and draw in our new dart position. You will cut on one of the dart legs, only one, and you will cut on your new plotted dart position line. So I'm going to cut on that line and I'm going to cut on the new line. Ideally, you would not cut through the bust point, but I'll show that to you a little bit later. But now you are going to stick one dart leg on top of the other one. That is when you close the dart, and you will see as you close that dart, it will open underneath the armhole. You can use sticky tape or glue to glue it down and add extra paper underneath the opening that you've just created. Always measure 2 centimeters in from your bust point. This will help to create a smooth bust and not a pointed bust point. And then reconnect your dart legs. If you were wondering how to create a pattern from the dart, you will close the dart and you will trace on that side seam line with your tracing wheel. When you open the pattern, you'll see that it has created a shape for you, and you can just draw in that line to create a complete pattern. And there we have it, your pattern. Always remember to add in all of your notches and your symbols. I'm going to do the same with this pattern block with 2 darts. I am going to create a shoulder dart with a bust dart. Underarm bust dart, that is. So I'm going to speed it up a little bit, but first step again, trace around the pattern, mark your bust point, draw in all of your lines, and then these will be your darts that you already had on your basic block. Now you need to draw in your dart. As you can see, we already have a shoulder dart, so we don't need to take that away. But we don't have a waist dart, so we are going to draw in our new dart position, and we are going to close our waist dart. The other dart manipulation technique is the pivoting method. When using this method, the original pattern is pivoted and traced in sections to create a new shape without the cutting and spreading of a pattern. For the pivoting sample, we are going to use the block with the shoulder dart first, and we are going to draw our little design, and we are going to create French darts. So that comes out of the side seam towards the bust point. Pivoting is a less destructive pattern method as it does not require you to cut and spread the pattern. What you do need to do still is to draw in your line where you want it to be, or at least create a little mark for yourself, like I'm doing. Then you will start to trace from that line all around your pattern until you get to your first dart leg. Then you need to stop. I'm going to call this dart leg A. I'm going to use my pin, stick it through the pattern and the paper, and pivot. Move the one dart leg, let's call it dart leg B. Move dart leg B to dart leg A. And then you can continue to trace around the pattern and stop when you have reached your point, which is at the bottom there. Right. Now you can remove the pattern and mark in your bust point. And just like the other pattern, you can reconnect the lines. So like before, we will fold it up and we will trace this time along the waistline to get our shape. And as always, you will move your bust point in a little bit to avoid a pointy bust and make our markings. So to pivot using a pattern with 2 darts, you follow the same principle. Let's say I want to design with a waist dart, but an armhole dart instead of a shoulder dart. What do? First, I'm going to keep my waist dart because there is a waist dart. So the only dart I'm going to close will be the shoulder dart. I'm going to take that away and move it towards the armhole. So first, I'm going to mark in my new dart position. And then I am going to trace around it starting from that point, right? All the way around, and then I will close that dart. So here we go. I am marking my dart leg and I'm going to use a pin to pivot the pattern dart leg B to dart leg A. I'm going to stop and then continue tracing around my pattern until I get to my new dart position. Take out my pin and then mark my bust point and connect the dart legs. This is a bodice block that I've created for myself for pivoting, and it features the 2 darts but also many different dart positions, as you can see all around the bodice. This makes pivoting quite easy because you have already drawn in your dart position, so it's easy to not get confused or lost. So let's quickly use this and create a shoulder dart. I am going to start from the shoulder tip, trace all around my block, and for this pattern let's close both of the darts. All you do is you mark your point, you use your little pin to pivot, and you work your way around the pattern until you get to your end point again. And then you just mark your bust point, you measure into centimeters to create your new bust point. You reconnect your dart legs and adding your notches and important information. Next up is contouring. This is all about creating the perfect fit by absorbing darts into style lines or design details like pleats and gathers. Here you will pay special attention to the bust area and neckline that may cause gaping, and curved areas such as the waist, hips and armholes. So in other words, this technique follows the contour of the body. How do you do this? By manipulating darts and taking away the excess fabric, shaping the pattern to fit the body. Last but not least, adding fullness. This is when you add extra material to create your desired look. When contouring uses the dart axis, adding fullness often requires more than just the axis that the dart provides. Thus, the pattern size is increased by cutting and spreading where more fullness is needed. So what is fullness? There are 3 ways you can add fullness to a pattern: equal fullness, one-sided fullness, and unequal fullness. Let's look at equal fullness first. This is where both sides of the pattern are equally spread, which means fullness will be at the top and the bottom of the pattern. One-sided fullness. This is when only one side of the pattern is increased. Usually when you do this, the pattern will have a curved effect. And unequal fullness. Now this is a mixture of equal and one-sided fullness. Both sides of the pattern are spread, but one side is spread more than the other. So this is what the patterns will look like with the different types of fullness. We have equal fullness, and you can see it's spread equally. One-sided fullness, only the bottom part of the pattern is spread. And unequal fullness, the top is spread and the bottom, but you can see that the bottom is spread a little bit more. So the gray areas in all of these patterns are the extra fabric or paper added to add fullness to your pattern. When I think about the word adding fullness, I visualize a ball gown, But you can do a lot with fullness. Fullness can be transformed into pleats, gathers, frills, flares, drapings, such as cowls to create interesting garments. It can also be placed at any angle, vertical, horizontal, diagonal, or all of the above. Let's finish this section off by analyzing a sketch to put to practice what we have learned thus far. So now we know the 3 pattern making techniques and how and why analyzing a sketch is important. So let's analyze this sketch together to identify the techniques before you start manipulating your pattern. This design incorporates all 3 pattern making techniques. We can see the use of dart manipulation as the dart is absorbed into the style line. This is called the princess style line. When it comes to adding fullness, there is quite a lot. We can see some fullness in the sleeve, the frills sewn into the princess style line, and the frills at the waist. This is a good example of one-sided fullness. As you can see, there are no gathers at the waist or in the style line seen, but there is flare, so only one side was spread. And contouring at the neckline. When it comes to V necklines or wrap tops, there will be some kind of contouring required to avoid the unwanted stretch and gaping that comes from the bias grain. It is a quick analysis, but this will really help you keep track of what you need to do and what needs to happen on your pattern. It really is a form of preparation. Right, now we know a little bit more about the different pattern making techniques, so let's look at how we can use them to turn our basic bodice block into something more exciting. For the following blocks, we are going to use the shape bodice block. Like the basic bodice block, it just features a waist dart. You can totally draft the following examples on your basic block with just the shoulder dart. It might actually be a bit easier. Let's start by looking at how to move a dart from one position to another. As you can see on your technical drawing, we are going to move the dart to the neckline. Let's look at our basic block with our plotting lines. So first we need to draw in our new dart position, which is the red dotted line going from the neckline to our predetermined point, which is our bust point. Using either your pivot or slash and spread method, you will close the 2 darts and create a new dart at the neckline. Also remember to move your bust point drill hole 2 centimeters back to ensure a smooth curve. How do you combine a dart with a style line? By using a dart to create a style line, you are taking advantage of the dart's purpose, but using it in a almost decorative way. To create the princess style line seen on your technical drawing, we first need to move our shoulder dart. The waist dart can stay where it is. The red dotted lines thus indicate our separate pattern pieces. Note that instead of creating a point at the bust point, I have blended the lines to create a smooth curve. Next, we are going to look at the asymmetric neckline. You can also apply this to V-necks or wrap necklines. Again, this design features the princess style line, and you already have an idea of how to do that, but this pattern looks a little bit different. Because it is asymmetrical, we need to trace both sides of the pattern in order to draft our design. You can draw in all of your plotting lines, including one that goes from your bust point towards the neckline. You will cut on that line towards the bust point and on one of the dart legs and overlap it by 1 centimeter. So we are going to make one dart, either the shoulder dart or the waist dart, bigger by overlapping 1 centimeter at the neckline. So in other words, we are going to take away some of the pattern. Why? Often, because a V neckline is cut on the bias, it can gape because there is more stretch in that specific grain. By taking away some fabric, you can avoid this. You will notice by overlapping, the curve of the neckline changes a little bit. Just blend it to create a smooth curve again. The grey area is where I have blended and added more fabric to the pattern. Right, adding gathers to a bodice pattern. First off, by looking at this sketch, we can see that this design features an underarm bust dart, so we already know we need to close both the shoulder dart and the waist dart and open it to the side seam. Then we need to draw in our yoke style line and only add extra paper or fabric to the center front of the pattern, the bottom half. The grey areas on the pattern is the extra fabric or extra paper that I've added, which will be gathered to fit the yoke. Let's play a little pattern game. Which of these designs belong to this bodice pattern? Is it design A or design B? It is design A, because the bottom part of the pattern is cut on fold and there will be a seam at the top. This can be design B too. You just need to twist the pattern and place the top half on the fold line and add seam allowance to the bottom half. Well done to those who got it right. I must be honest, guys, I love a good sleeve. So let's take a look at how we can transform our basic sleeve into something a bit more fashion forward. As a designer, you need to know the names of different sleeve types, so let's look at a few different sleeves and their names. This is the shirt sleeve. The next one is a bishop sleeve and then a bell sleeve. Next is a puff sleeve, a petal sleeve, and a raglan sleeve. We get a batwing sleeve that does not feature an armhole, a peasant sleeve and a roll-up sleeve, a cap sleeve, flounce sleeve, and leg of mutton sleeve. I've always liked statement sleeves with a bit of volume, so my favorite sleeves are the bishop, bell, puff, and the flounce sleeve that you can see on your screen right now. Please let me know what your favorite sleeve is. For this round of patterns, we will be using our basic sleeve block we drafted in the last pattern making lesson. First, we are going to look at contouring. What do we notice about this technical drawing? It has a dart at the elbow. We all know that darts create shape, right? So it makes sense to add a dart to create a more fitted sleeve. But how do we do this? First, we need to mark a line from the side seam to the middle of the pattern and square down to the hem. Draw it on the elbow line because, as we can see from the technical drawing, the position of the dart is at the elbow. This new dotted red line will become our cutting line. After you have made the cut, move the bottom of the pattern, the hem of the sleeve, 4 centimeters in and blend your new hem of the sleeve. So you are decreasing the pattern by 4 centimeters. This will not only create a slimmer fit around the forearm, but also create a dart at the elbow to create a better fit. Adding flair to sleeves, my favorite. Right, the first thing you need to do is to determine the new length of the sleeve, so on this pattern it is elbow length. Then, divide the pattern into as many sections as the design requires. I have 5 cutting lines. Cut these open and spread them to create flair by adding extra paper where spread. This is a good example of one-sided flair. Now the extra flair that you add, make it a consistent number. So spread it by 2 centimeters or 3 centimeters or however much, but try and keep it consistent. Let's look at adding gathers to a sleeve. This pattern is similar to the flare sleeve, but instead of creating one-sided fullness, we are going to spread the sections equally because we can see there are gathers at the top and bottom of this puff sleeve. Again, note where I am blending the top of the sleeve. I have also created a cuff that is simply the circumference of my arm plus seam allowance. Let's see if you can get this one right. Which of these designs belong to the sleeve pattern? Is it design A, the cup sleeve, or design B? It is design B, because we can see that the head is gathered, there is no fullness at the hem of the sleeve, and this block is longer than the sleeve featured in design A. Before I tell you all about our next lesson, let's just take a quick look at the skills you have learned, the ones you are working on, and the ones to come. As you can see, you have been an absolute champion, smashing goals left, right, and center. You can be so proud, I know I am. I can watch designers drape fabric over a dress form for hours. With a few twists of the fabric, tucking off pleats, bolts, and pins holding your piece of art together, a piece of plain fabric can be transformed into something princesses dream of. If you want to learn about what draping is and how to drape, the next lesson is for you. Join me and let's explore the magical world of draping together. Right, now let's look at how we can turn our tailored skirt into something more interesting. For the next few examples, we are going to use the basic skirt block that you have drafted in your previous lesson. Let's start by looking at how you can take away a dart. Sometimes we want the fit without having the dart, right? So taking away a dart is actually easier than you think. All you must do is draw a guideline for yourself, the length of the dart towards your side seam, and measure in the width of the dart from your side seam and redraw the hip line. As you can see, I have indicated that with the red plotted lines. As you can see in the new pattern, the dart will still be on the pattern, but it will not be a functional dart because you already took that excess paper or fabric away at the side seam. There might be a sharp point on the hip line. Just make sure to blend it to create a smooth hip line. Next up, contouring. Guys, we are almost done. Just stick with me. So this design is a little bit more extravagant. In order to create the yoke, which is the waistband, you first need to draw in your plotting lines. You will cut on the dart legs and close the dart for the yoke piece, absorbing the dart into the design, and use the part of the dart that is left to create more shape on the bottom piece. So the final pieces will look something like this. The bottom piece will still feature the bottom part of the dart, and the top yoke, the dart has been taken away by sticking the two dart legs on top of each other, adding flair to a skirt because who doesn't like a flowy skirt? First off, we can see that there is more flair and no darts in our technical drawing. So how do we create this pattern? First, you can extend the hem a bit and reconnect it with the hip line to create more volume at the hem. So I usually put about 2 centimeters extra. Then, square down from the dart point to the hem. You can use your hip line as a guide. You will cut on one of the dart legs and down this red dotted plotting line. By closing the waist dart, you will spread and create flare at the bottom of the skirt. Redraw your hem by blending the lines to create a smooth curve, and that is it. Are you ready to play the last match the pattern with the design game? Which of these designs belong to this skirt pattern? Is it design A or design B? You are right if you said design A. Like the princess style line, we have used the dart legs to create a style line, so the dart was absorbed by the style line. This pattern also does not feature any gatherings, so it can't be design B. Although, if you added extra paper to the center front, you can easily turn this pattern into design B. Designers, please feel free to re-watch this lesson, but also understand that pattern making is a process of trial and fail until you develop the perfect design with the perfect fit. It is about experimentation and the exploration of different techniques. Pattern making is a wonderful skill to have, a skill that can make all your design dreams come true. Hopefully you guys have drawn up your basic blocks, so now I want you to experiment with some of the techniques we have looked at today, like moving darts, contouring, and adding fullness. If you want to share your pattern, please take a photo of the pattern and your design so that others can see how you have drafted the pattern. If you want help from classmates, please post your design on the Shaw Academy Fashion Design Facebook group and ask for some help. We can always learn a little bit from each other. And please don't forget to use the hashtag #ShawFashionPattern. And just like that, you have completed your first lesson of Module 4. Well done, guys. I hope you are eager to start experimenting with patterns and create something amazing. I will see you soon for lesson 2, from drape to dress. Our quote said sucking at something is the first step to being sort of good at something. And it is so true. When it comes to learning any new skill, such as pattern making, you are going to stumble along the way. I want you to remember that getting frustrated and making mistakes are part of the process. Instead of throwing in the towel, use it and learn from your mistakes. Learning how to create patterns is already difficult, and now I'm trying to teach this to you online, making it even more challenging. I understand this is difficult, but please continue to study these flat pattern making techniques, get yourself a pattern making book, experiment and make mistakes. This is the journey you have to walk if you want to become a great fashion designer who makes incredible pieces of clothing. Now, ask yourself, are you willing to put in the time and effort to be that designer? Until next time, as always, stay fashionable.